I'm walking down the stairs in the main building here in Olomouc, used for AFO48, which they call the convict, which is their word for convent. It's an old convent, huge building, and I'm walking down one of the expansive corridors at the moment. You can hear by the echo. And they tell me that if you go to one end of this huge corridor, and at night time, you can hear clearly people right down the other end. Well, that's very interesting. So what I think I'll do is I'll just put my microphone down here on the floor and walk must be nearly 100 meters down to the other end of the hall, and we'll see if it works.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 235 on the 20th of April 2013. Richard Saunders here with you, all by myself in a beautiful park outside the city walls of Olomouc in the Czech Republic. A babbling brook, birds singing, beautifully laid out gardens and a grand city wall. It's quite something. I'll post a picture on my Twitter stream shortly after doing this introduction, so Twitter followers at Skeptic Zone can see where I am. Well, I've had a wonderful time here at the Academic Film Festival. I was part of the international jury. I did origami lessons and lectures and talks, and I was introducing works by Brian Dunning and Richard Dawkins and doing a talk on water divining, so they've kept me very busy, very busy. Well, coming up on this week's show, more about this fantastic film festival here. We have little clips from my introduction of The Enemies of Reason, the announcement of the winner of the International Science Documentary Competition, chosen by myself and some other people on the international jury. And we'll chat to some of the organisers to find out more about the festival known as AFO, AFO, or AFO. Also on this week's show, a roundup report from QED, which was last week in Manchester. Question, Explore, Discover. And that was a wonderful time too. I ended up at the last minute stepping in for my distant cousin Ben Goldacre, who couldn't make it. So I was very lucky to be given a spot on the main stage. That was good fun. Not forgetting this week a week in science with Paul Willis from the Royal Institution of Australia, www.riaus.org.au, and Maynard's Spooky Action. Maynard interviews James Owen Weatherall, who's written a book, The Physics of Wall Street. But for now I'm going to have a wander around these beautiful gardens, talk to a few birds or something like that. Lots of birds around here, as you can hear. And while I'm doing that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Well, we're outside the convict, which is the old convent here they use for AFO48 for the base. And I've got one of the organisers with me. Hello, who are you?
Hello, I'm Jakub. I'm programmer. That's called dramaturg in Czech. So I'm one of the people who basically chooses movies and have to watch all the competition movies, and then one of the team of four people who are preparing program blocks. We call it blocks because there are always like 4 or 5 topics, and these blocks are basically the main building stone of the whole festival, and all around that there is a graphics and propagation are built on these topics of program blocks.
So this year, of course, we had mathematics as one of the topics, and pseudoscience and vaccination. Was that a block?
Right, that was mine. The main block was mathematics, and so that's why we have those wallpapers and posters everywhere with sigma and omega and all these math signs. So yeah, and there was vaccination. That was actually supposed to be at the first time. That was supposed to be a part of pseudoscience block. Then we say, come on, let's not be so harsh on the anti-vaccine people. Give them a chance. But it is pseudoscience. Everyone knows that, right?
Yes. Now, the festival itself, it's been going here in the Czech Republic for 48 years. Is that right?
Right, that's right. It's 48 years. I think you told me yesterday that's the same as you.
Right? Same age as me. We've both been going the same amount of years, yeah.
And that's the same time as Horizon of BBC is going, by the way.
That's right.
Horizon on the BBC, yeah. So that's really funny coincidence. But yeah, it's 48 years, but in this really big scale, with a lot of international guests and really, let's say, precise organization, it goes for 7 years.
Right, so it's really picked up. It's really changed and grown in the last 7 years.
Precisely, we basically revamped the whole festival 6-7 years ago, and it changed its face, its contents, just everything. Before it was, let's be honest, there was 40 years communist era, and of course. Festival of scientific documentary during communist era had a political connection. You can bet on that.
Yeah.
So but it was even in those bad times, there was a certain quality. So.
Well, I've had a wonderful time. Of course, I've had to view all 19 of the movies in the world competition, which was enormously interesting for me. So many great science documentaries, but I couldn't even see all the movies that were being shown here. So many movies and so many Czech movies too.
Well, and you would have to see how difficult it was to choose those 19 movies. We had 200 movies.
200?
Right, in world competition. So that was a lot of work. It's just lucky thing that we are six programmers who are basically watching all the world competition movies and choosing the best. It's not that hard in the end to agree on 15. But then you have to do those painful selections, which movies goes in and which not. And it's this year was honestly absolutely the hardest ever.
Well, I mean, for me and the other members of the world jury, there was an interesting decision. We all agreed, really, at the end, but to watch all those movies was certainly a great experience for me. And I want to take the opportunity to thank AFO very much for inviting me here. I've had one of the best weeks of my life. I think it's so much to see, so much to do, and so interesting.
Well, there's not much to thank. We thank you because that's the only thing we can do. Yeah, and that was the agreement in your world jury. That was also quite unique. That's not usual at all. They're usually spending whole nights over beer and debating and arguing and having quarrels, and you just basically choose the grammar of happiness. Yes. And by the way, the student jury made the same decision. That's absolutely unique. That never happened actually before. So yeah, but well, what can I say? Thank you again, Richard, because you were just one of the essential parts of the whole festival. We tried to keep you busy, and
you did.
Hopefully we agreed. Yeah.
You really did keep me busy. I must tell you, folks, that yesterday in the cafe we had a big open origami workshop, and at one stage people were applauding when I made a flying pig. So that was very gratifying.
You have to see. I was in the guest service in the third floor, talking with some other guests, and suddenly I heard this booming noise, people applauding. I was like, yeah, that must be Richard Origami Workshop, definitely. It's a true story. I'm not joking.
Well, what can I say, folks? If I'm very lucky, I might even be back here next year, and it'll be at the same time next year.
Yeah, around the same time. It's not precisely the same, but usually it's the third or fourth week of April.
Well, listen, thank you once again, and all the best for AFO in the future.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good evening. This is my new best friend.
Dobrý večer, já jsem jeho nejlepší přítel.
It's a great pleasure to be here. I come from the other side.
Je mi velkou ctí, že před vámi dnes mohu stát, protože jsem přišel z druhé strany.
Of the world.
Světa.
Tonight, it's my great pleasure to introduce the first part of the documentary, Enemies of Reason, by Richard Dawkins. I've written a short piece to say about it, and with the aid of my friend, I'm sure we shall get through it.
Je mi velkou ctí, že můžu představit Enemies of Reasons, které vytvořil Richard Dawkins, a tady s pomocí mého tlumočníka, čili mě, vám k tomu říct pár slov.
I hope so. They're a good crowd. I like this crowd. The Enemies of Reason, Slaves to Superstition by Richard Dawkins. Of all the works of Richard Dawkins, none speak to me more than The Enemies of Reason. It is the documentary I wish I had produced. Dr. Dawkins takes a close look at many of the topics that are of vital interest to skeptics like me, but also should be of great interest to anybody involved in science. It's not so much a look at the paranormal claims, but a look into the thinking processes of those who believe or those who reject science. Why are so many people convinced that the claims of things like astrology, tarot cards, the so-called human aura, are not only real, but they can be used to heal or fix your problems? These are topics I deal with almost every day. Is he doing okay? Is he all right? I wonder what you said. All right. One of the best questions we can ask anybody making a paranormal claim is, how does it work? This is exactly what you'll see Richard Dawkins doing in this documentary. And this is the question that many proponents of the New Age have not been asked, as their believers will not ask it. Instead, believers assume it works, and to question it is to be a heretic, or even worse, a skeptic. Please watch out for the response Richard Dawkins gets when he suggests to an astrologer that the claims of astrology can be scientifically tested. This response is one I have seen many times from all sorts of people making paranormal claims, especially from those who claim they can talk with the dead. And talking with the dead, or the claim, is something we'll see in this documentary. When the claim of water dowsing is put to the test, something I have done many times, the reactions from the dowsers are absolutely typical of the reactions we have seen and documented for over 30 years in Australia. Take careful note of the fact that Richard Dawkins visits a New Age festival. This has been my practice every 6 months for the past 13 years, and I have discovered much by doing this. As we will see, when Richard Dawkins visits the festival, he does not argue, he does not get angry, but he does ask questions, especially when having his tarot cards read. As I mentioned before, this documentary for me is a journey into the mind of the believer. I think Richard Dawkins is an excellent tour guide. You may get an understanding as to why some people reject the method of science. Finally, I have a message from Richard Dawkins himself. Just 3 days ago, we met at the QED convention in Manchester. He is delighted to know that The Enemies of Reason is being shown as part of AFO, and wishes me to pass on his warmest regards and best wishes for the festival.
A nakonec mám tu čest vám předat vzkaz od samotného Richarda Dawkinse, kterého jsem před 3 dny potkal na QED konferenci v Manchesteru. Moc ho potěšilo, že se nepřátelé rozumu na OFO promítají a chtěl, abych vám vyřídil, že vás moc zdraví a přeje festivalu hodně štěstí.
Thank you very much.
AFO48 folks, I'm having such a wonderful time. It's winding down, but one of the other guests here I was very delighted to see was Rebecca Watson from the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe and Skeptic. Hello, Rebecca.
Hello, Richard. So good to see you.
It's good to see you. I've had a wonderful time. Busy.
Yeah.
But a wonderful time, and I think you've had a great time too.
I have. I've had a brilliant time. The city is gorgeous. The people are friendly. The wine is cheap. The beer is cheaper.
It is.
Yeah, no, I'm having a blast.
And lots to see. And you did a panel or discussion today, I think.
I did a talk today on women in science and skepticism. And 2 days ago, I did a dual discussion with Elise Andrew.
Oh, that's right. And she just left us, unfortunately.
She did, yeah. She's the woman who runs Love Science on Facebook, and we talked about communicating science on new media.
Excellent. And, well, okay, there are hordes of young Czechs walking past us at the moment.
There
are. In a garden-type area or a courtyard, and they had a big rap party. This is really, Olomouc is really a university town, and I think it's fantastic.
It is a very young town, the university makes it really easy to be here as an English speaker because everyone here speaks English. Everyone's young and everyone is pretty much fluent in English, which surprised me. It's been great. It's been very easy.
Yeah, I went down to McDonald's just for the hell of it.
What?
I did.
No.
I thought I got to try this. I did. I have to admit it. Anyway, but in other stores I've been to too. No, not a problem.
Yeah. I guess I can't complain. I went to H&M to buy underpants, so you can go to McDonald's.
I'm not going to comment much about that. No.
It was because the airline lost my luggage.
Your luggage, I know.
It was the only option, you know.
Yeah. But no, seriously, folks, the film festival here in Olomouc is... I've just had a blast. It was great to see you. I could tell you that you were busy, but you're having a good time too. So.
I've had a great time, and it's been great to see you too, Richard.
Thank you, Rebecca.
How's it going, mate? Děkuji. Druhý večer. Hezky. There were 19 films from which we were charged the responsibility to select a single winner. And while 19 have strong elements, be them narrative or cinematographic, and many choose current compelling topics, the international jury came to a unanimous decision that one film stood out for its accomplishments across all considered criteria. The film describes a people and their intriguing culture and language. It tells an epic story of an individual's struggle. And if you have seen the film, you will likely agree that this personal struggle is both compelling and emotional. The film elegantly conveyed scientific theories, concepts, methods, and limitations with a level of clarity that testifies to a respectful and intimate relationship between the filmmaker and the scientists that are portrayed. It is superb also for its creative and often breathtaking cinematography, enhancing use of audio effects, clear-flowing dialogue, and a healthy, well-timed dose of comic relief. The film develops a message that resonates with me as a scientist and is critical for all to understand. What defines science more than anything else is its reliance on experimental data. And it is specifically for this aspect that science has been able to achieve the previously unimaginable. So for telling the story of a missionary turned linguistic professor who shared with the world a remarkable discovery of the Pirahese language that lacks numeracy and has no equivalent words for and or, the international jury selects for AFO's 48th annual World's Best Science Documentary, The Grammar of Happiness, produced by Michael O'Neill.
Hi, firstly I'd just like to say what a great honour it is to win this award. We're really excited. I'm really excited, and I'd like to thank the audiences, the judges, and everyone who attended the festival, and obviously the festival itself for this great honour. Obviously I can't be there tonight. I'm currently appearing in production of Les Miserables in Sydney, hence the strange costume, but I would have absolutely loved to have been there tonight, and if there was any way that I could have, I would have been there. This film took 5 years. It was 5 years in the making. It was a very, very, very difficult journey. I'd like to thank our executive producer, Chris Hilton, for persevering with the film over those 5 years. I'd like to thank my co-director, Randall Wood. He shot the film and his images were beautiful, so I'd like to thank him for that. And above all else, I'd like to thank Daniel Everett, who trusted us with his incredible story. If you haven't seen the film, go and see. This guy has had a remarkable life, and he trusted us with that life, so I'd like to thank him for that. Have a great night. Thank you again. It's an incredible honour, and I hope you have a wonderful night and have a great party. Thank you.
A podíváme se na ukázka vítězného filmu.
Skin is awe, and the word for foreigner is awe, and the word for hand is awe, and the word for Brazil nutshell is awe, and that's only distinguished by the tones, all of those.
Takže děkuju. Good job, mate, good job. I vám děkuji. Tak já myslím, že máme dát vlastně, můžu poprosit ještě naše pan z Austrálie, který good evening. Ano, já se omlouvám, jsem byl trošku předčasný.
Yes, there is more room in my suitcase.
Yeah, Australia's had a good night.
I'm thrilled again to be here, and I promise you I shall personally deliver this to Michael O'Neill. On behalf of Michael, once again, thank you very much.
Tak místo v kufru ještě mám a slibuji vám, že cenu Michaelu O'Neillovi předám osobně. Děkuji.
Okay. I hope you have a problem with overweight in your baggage.
I'll manage.
You'll manage.
I'm Eugenie Scott, Executive Director of the National Center for Science Education in Oakland, California. We defend and support the teaching of evolution and climate change when it comes under attack for religious and political reasons. We help teachers, parents, school boards, and other citizens defend good science in the schools. Come visit us at ncsc.com and on YouTube and Facebook. And let us know if science comes under attack in your community. We're here to help.
It's the organisers, the people responsible for QED, or some of them anyway. How do you think it went?
Really good, I think. Everyone seems really happy. The speakers all seem really happy. More importantly, the attendees all seem really happy. There's a few very exhausted faces in the audience.
Mine included, I think.
Yeah, well, you've been an absolute trooper for us. You've been absolutely superb, stepping in and saving us at the last minute. So, yeah, huge thanks, as always, to you. But, I think everyone seems really like it. Everyone keeps telling us it's getting better, so
well,
lots to live up to.
This is my second QED, and it was at least as every bit as good as the first. And different, of course, because there are different speakers and things like that. But, yeah, lots of happy faces.
Yeah. I'm going to be a bit blunter. I think our speakers knocked it out of the park this year. They really did.
Yeah, and I think it was a good mix as well.
It was a good mix, and I was tuning into the last one, which was very interesting. Lawrence Krauss, of course.
Yeah. And he was, a lot of people, love the subject. And I saw him on the panel, the God panel, earlier in the day with Richard and with Mike Hall.
That was packed out. I couldn't get in. It was packed out. Yeah.
We knew it was going to be packed out, but you need a panel like that in a panel room. It can't be a main stage thing. It works so much better when it's intimate and small. And, it was standing room only, but it was just brilliant. And Mitch Ben was an absolute revelation as well.
That went rather well.
Yes.
They're getting good comments. Random people walking by. Now, why this year is it at a different time of the year? Last year was in February. I think it was February.
Last year was March, I think.
March,
the first year was February. I'm not really sure. I think we're moving it to a place that's a bit further away from Christmas, really. So we don't come straight out of Christmas and have a million things to do. But I think, I guess we'll probably stick around the same kind of time. I don't think we're going to slowly slip through the year, otherwise we're going to have it on Christmas Day, which is going to be not ideal.
And there was a show of hands at the end from the audience, who wants another one? Everyone does.
That's true. There was a nice sort of complete silence when we asked, is there anyone who doesn't want another one? So it's good. You can almost hear like a pin drop, or I expected a cricket chirping in the background and tumbleweeds rolling across the stage.
It's the last thing you want to think about right now, isn't it?
We'd have had a heart attack if everyone had gone, Should we have another one? Not so much, to be honest. Don't really care.
Of course, the downside of that means we are going to have to do some more work.
Yes.
And how on earth are we going to top this?
Yeah.
I don't know. There are more speakers out there, and different topics you can cover, and you'll get the crowd.
Well, hopefully so. There are people saying they want to buy a ticket now. They're annoyed that it isn't already on sale, which is a bit amazing. And I had to say, well, give us till August. There's people also suggesting speakers just at the end of the event, which is lovely, because people want to be part of this event and people want to sort of put it on, and we always try to make it so it's all about the attendees and everyone's part of it and things like that. But I've been sort of saying to people, could you remind me in about 4 months' time?
Right.
I don't want to think about QED for at least 4 months now.
Right. Did you give a talk?
No, I was in the panel room a couple of times. They'd never let me on the main stage. That's never going to happen, Richard. Come on.
Hang on, weren't you on the main stage last year with Richard?
Yes, you were.
I had a fleeting appearance on the main stage. That's true. I
was tempted to get you up again so we could do another double act, but that was okay. Well, listen, I've had a wonderful time. I didn't expect anything less, of course.
Well, thank you so much for everything as well, Richard. You've been absolutely great. And it's lovely to see you again and all.
Oh, yes, it worked out very well. And folks, that's the word. Annoy the Merseyside Skeptics very soon.
And the Great Manchester Skeptics.
And the Great Manchester.
Yes.
Not forgetting, as soon as you can, in a few months, for QED 2014.
2014. Good God, it sounds a long way away when you say that.
Only 4 months of rest. That's not enough.
Thanks, lads.
No, cheers.
How are you going?
Hello, Helen Dale. Hello. Originally from Australia, now living in Scotland. What did you think of QED?
Well, I've never been before, but it was excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. And I got to introduce the audience to the concept of Scottish banter.
How did that go? Because I was speaking when your panel was on, so I missed your panel.
Well, it was sort of very, very briefly, sort of the law 101 from the perspective of English law and Scots law, because there are two different legal systems when it comes to social media. And Scots law lets Scots get away with Scottish banter, but the problem is Scottish banter is kind of global now, so...
How would you define quickly Scottish banter?
You're allowed under Scots law to say something that's a bit nasty that you don't believe is true.
What's an example?
Well, you could sort of accuse me of going to the other place in terms of university. You say I went to Cambridge and I really went to Oxford, and someone in England can get quite annoyed about that, whereas in Scotland you just sort of have to take it on the chin.
Okay.
But there's a lot worse. You should go on a Facebook group called Scottish Banter and you'll discover the concept.
I might just do that. Thank you, Helen.
Cheers.
the news. Yes, apparently Justin Bieber has just been to the Anne Frank house in Amsterdam and has left a comment. It was actually not just tweeting it, but left it as a comment in the guest book. Anne seems like a great girl. I'm sure she would have been a believer. This isn't actually a joke.
You should see my face, ladies and gentlemen.
According to the internet.
A believer,
a Justin Bieber fan, yeah. So of course this has caused lots of people to ask, whether Ken Saro-Wiwa preferred Pulp or Blur. I mean, these really, really important cultural questions.
This is the sort of conversations, folks, that happens after a big conference like QED. What did you think of the conference generally?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. It's my first time at QED. Few people here that I've met before, loads that I haven't, and it's just always great talking to skeptics, really, and it's great giving a talk to a skeptics audience because it's such an engaged audience, people really getting down to the nitty-gritty of the talk and really getting into the details and asking good questions, which is probably the most valuable bit, is the conversation, it's the back and forth.
Yeah, and that happens, of course, afterwards and in the bar,
yes.
Even like the people behind us are doing now. And what did you think, Ben?
I love QED because you get a year's worth of fabulous, fabulous skeptics in the pub, skeptics in the auditorium. You get a year's worth of this in 2 days. The big problem is overload. So many amazing people, so many amazing talks, so many amazing things to drink. And
now we've come to the heart of the matter.
So no, I love QED. I really, really love meeting and spending time with people that I'm interacting with, mainly on Facebook, and that is the great joy for me of QED, is meeting the people.
Kia from Edinburgh, what did you think of QED this year?
It was fantastic. I will describe it without using hyperbole and swearing, but it was fantastic. No, it was fantastic again to come
You were
back.
here last year?
Last year. It's actually very bizarre. I came in on the Friday night for the mixer and seeing so many people again in the same context, but it didn't feel like 13 months had actually passed. It kind of felt like you just got up again in the Mercury Hotel, came down, and the last 13 months just hadn't happened, and everyone was still here to listen to more sceptical talks and more science stuff.
It does make the year go quickly when you think about it, yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely it does. The only way I could really tell it's changed is that Piccadilly Square appears to have got a bit greener than it was last year.
And they've got this giant tower thing with a swing, like a carnival ride out there.
It's a charity thing, I think, actually. The Star Burst or the Star Twirler or something along those lines. So one of the hotel staff was trying to persuade us to go on it, but I'm sceptical of my ability to cope with vertigo at such heights. So.
I'm sceptical of my ability to cope with it today, at least, anyway. Thanks, Q.
No worries.
So more random people just standing around, not doing anything. What did you think of QED?
Oh, it was fantastic. I'm really sad that I missed some things, but I got some other fantastic talks in the meanwhile.
Yeah, well, you can't see everything in a QED, which is unfortunate, but it just means there's so many good talks that they have to jam them in any way they can.
Yes, and being in a really small, overcrowded room upstairs, that is fun.
I know that room. That's the Douglas Adams room. Now, what did you think of that as a volunteer, with your volunteer shirt? As the wife of the organizer, what's your honest opinion?
Could have been better.
Yeah, I knew I'd get one. I knew I'd get one. Did you enjoy yourself?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed all the speakers. Everyone was fantastic and lovely as usual, and all the. It's always nice meeting all the people from all you foreign countries and things.
Oh, you foreign countries? You're originally you're from Texas.
Yes.
That's a foreign country.
Yeah, there are a few Americans. I was excited. And of course Brian Thompson and Carrie Poppy and everybody, so it was quite... And Lawrence Krauss, of course.
Yes, of course. Yeah, and a sprinkling of some more, I would imagine. Yeah. And you've been in the UK now for over a year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or longer.
Maybe a year and a half now, yeah.
I can tell. That's not a Texan accent anymore, folks.
It didn't start off as a very Texan accent.
What did it start off with?
I don't know, actually. I keep saying it's still a Texas accent. So.
Whatever it is now, it's changed.
It's probably some kind of hybridity. So.
Hybrid, yeah. I think. Are you enjoying the UK? Are you getting into the groove of it?
It is. I've gotten used to the rain. Finally. I went from it's raining again to, it's raining again.
But the snow's nice. Snow's good.
I like snow. I do appreciate snow. Well, maybe we can all get back together again in 12 months' time.
Yes, probably.
Probably, I hope so.
I'm sure I will be here if it's here in 12 months' time, so...
AstronomyCast takes a facts-based journey through the cosmos as it offers listeners weekly discussions on astronomical topics ranging from planets to cosmology. Hosted by Fraser Kane of Universe Today and myself, Dr. Pamela Gay of Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville, this show brings the questions of an avid astronomy lover directly to an astronomer. Together, Fraser and I explore what is known and being discovered about the universe around us. Join us each week as we take a facts-based journey through the cosmos at astronomycast.com.
Welcome to A Week in Science from RiAus. This week, hobbit brains, baby brains, and rat kidneys. Sounds delicious. Modern technology has revealed that ancient hobbits had larger brains than previously thought. Homo floresiensis is an extinct human-like species from Flores, an island in Indonesia, and scientists have long puzzled over how their tiny brains evolved. But a recent high-resolution CT scan has shown that their brains were actually about 6% larger than previous estimates suggested. This fits with the hypothesis that large-bodied Homo erectus migrated to the solitary island and shrunk in body and brain size over time, evolving into the hobbit species. In an exciting step forward, we can now tell when infants begin to recognise what they see. A team of European researchers studied babies aged 5 to 15 months, matching their brain activity patterns to those found when adults recognise faces. While these patterns were seen in young infants, the signals became stronger and more sustained as they got older. This could help doctors to better understand infant consciousness in relation to anaesthetics and pain. And now, 4 science headlines in 30 seconds. Concert lovers will be relieved that their short-term hearing loss does not reflect damage, but is actually a protective response of the inner ear. Fainting could run in the family, with research suggesting an inherited gene may be responsible. A parasitic worm has inspired the development of an adhesive bandage that mechanically anchors to living tissue. And the mere flavour of beer, and not just the alcohol, causes the brain's pleasure centre to release dopamine, encouraging you to drink more. And finally this week, bioengineers have built functioning rat kidneys. US scientists worked with dead rats, pigs and humans to produce a kind of scaffold or frame that can hold the parts of a kidney in place. They then added kidney and blood vessel cells from a live rat into the scaffold, effectively building a new organ. When transplanted into rats, the kidneys produced urine. Continuing research could provide hope for future human organ transplantations. Experts are predicting a particularly bad flu season, so if you're in Adelaide, come along to our inaugural Vaccination Cafe on Monday, the 29th of April. Between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m, you can get your flu vaccination for just $10. Grab a free tea or coffee and chat with immunology researchers. More details on our website. That's been the highlights of another big week in science. For more information and other science news, check out the RiAus website, riaus.org.au, where you can also sign up for notifications of future episodes. You can follow A Week in Science on Twitter using the hashtag WeekInSci. I'm Paul Willis, and on behalf of the RiAus team, see you next week.
Yeah, right, guys. I was talking to Richard Saunders the other day.
All right.
He said if we record a trailer for our podcast, Skeptics with a K, he'd play it on their show.
Well, that's nice of him. That's very generous.
It's pretty good. I'm not sure what we could do, though. I mean...
Well, I suppose you tell people what the show's about.
But it's basically just this.
Yeah, but Yeah, we talk about science and skepticism and things.
That's true. I suppose you mentioned the website address.
What, merseysideskeptics.org.uk?
Yeah, or just like search us on iTunes. Oh, and then we could end with like a big song like The Skeptics with a K podcast.
No. Don't do that.
Here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Well, boys and girls, are you sitting comfortably? Because on the line I have James Owen Weatherall. James, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Let me tell you, he's a physicist, philosopher and mathematician. He holds graduate degrees from Harvard University and the University of California, Irvine, and a philosopher of science and a member of the Institute for Mathematical Behavioral Science. He lives in Irvine, California with his wife and twin daughters. Now, do they show a massive interest in physics as well?
They're about 4.5 months old.
Putting any sort of complicated graphs in front of them and showing them the bell curve yet?
We're mostly working on what happens if they drop stuff.
What got you excited about physics and that to be your chosen path? Why physics, James?
So I always had an attraction to science. I like, building stuff, experimenting on things. But I also really love mathematics. And I think that physics is probably fair to say that physics is the natural science that uses mathematics in the most creative ways.
You didn't have any apple on the head Isaac Newton moment, did you?
There was a moment where I read an article in Scientific American that just blew my mind. Figured I wanted to be working on that sort of thing.
Do you get infuriated sometimes by the way science is represented in popular culture and on news programs that don't have much time to go into it, so you get a rather sketchy explanation of physics particularly that could sometimes be wrong?
As someone who has done a fair amount of science popularization, I try to be tolerant because it really is very difficult to make some of these ideas accessible. Although, of course, it is frustrating when it's done in misleading ways.
Particularly when the whole idea of quantum is co-opted by people without science training to explain something that's definitely not scientific.
That is true. That is one of my pet peeves.
Is your wife telling you to stop yelling at the television sometimes?
I think we just avoid that kind of television.
Yeah, that's probably the best idea. Watching Fox News isn't going to help anyone. The Physics of Wall Street, A Brief History of Predicting the Unpredictable, is your book. And at first I was a bit scared of reading it because I thought I might delve into things that I couldn't understand. But very quickly I was into some of the history of chaos theory and graphing of what can happen in any given environment. The whole idea that there could be a physics of Wall Street and there could be various models that are made to perhaps graph what happens in the stock market. And I would have thought that this would always be impossible because it's beyond chaos theory, because it involves chaos and greed.
Maybe the thing that I find more frustrating than misuse of quantum is just how we think about how science works. And there is one thing that is pretty crazy sounding, and I think probably will never happen. I wouldn't bet on it anyway. And that's having some sort of final theory of finance. We spend a lot of time talking about final theories of physics as though we're going to understand the true fundamental constituents of the universe and the whole history of the universe and where we came from and answer all the big questions. But most of science isn't like that. Most of science is, you're trying to solve little problems. You're trying to use math in order to make predictions in pretty limited domains. And that's the sort of thing that I think we can do in finance pretty effectively.
When you look at unified field theory, that apparently is very simple compared to the stock market.
That's true, but a unified field theory is also very simple in some ways anyway, compared to, for instance, a combustion engine or something like that. There are lots of really complicated systems that we encounter in the world. Financial markets are just one of them. I mean, think about how complicated the human brain is, for instance. We don't understand it, but we have some idea that we're making progress.
There'll be people in Wall Street that are given models that they want to go by because they think, aha, here's the magic bullet to being rich.
It is very tempting when you're presented with some piece of mathematics to imagine that it solves all of your problems. But that's precisely what I argue in the book these models shouldn't be thought of doing. I mean, I think that they provide a certain kind of information. They provide insights that you simply couldn't get otherwise. But they're one tool among many.
What kind of people have been overselling these models to be used on Wall Street and perhaps overstating their effectiveness?
There are a lot of people on Wall Street and finance quite generally who use models, for instance, for sales purposes, or who are trying to make a certain kind of sales pitch and a pretty compelling idea that, you've got some genius in the back room who's got everything figured out. I think that caution is the word of the day. I think that these things can be used effectively, but well, they can be overhyped very easily.
How much part do you think it played in the financial crisis we now find ourselves in, these models, people relying on these models? And how much of it was basically greed without deregulation?
There's a strong sense in which the models were misused in the lead up to the financial crisis. I think that one can put a kind of faith in models that sort of blind you to ways in which they can fail, and in particular can blind you to particular assumptions that go into some model that you'd like to use, or some financial practice that's based on some model, and as a result can create situations that are very, very risky. And I think that that's what happened in 2008, that there was a particular model that was based on an assumption about housing prices that was very, very good up to about 2006. And then the assumptions started being less and less good as housing prices started to drop. There were certainly plenty of people around who recognized that the model was based on an assumption that assumption was failing and changed their practices. It's just that, for instance, credit ratings agencies didn't change their practices. And so they kept assigning very high ratings to certain products that were much more risky than it appeared. You shouldn't think that you have solved a problem. You should think that you have gotten a kind of approximate solution that's going to work sometimes. And you should spend an awful lot of energy trying to figure out under what circumstances these things are going to be effective and identify the circumstances under which they're going to fail to be effective.
And when exactly did economists and mathematicians get together and start to try and come up with modelling that could help them make money on the stock market? Was it shortly after the Sumerians invented writing, or what happened?
So shortly after the Sumerians invented writing, they invented derivatives contracts. So we heard a lot the last few years about how derivatives are this disastrous new financial practice.
Someone with a bit of sense, even the Sumerians, would have gone, hang on a minute, this derivative stuff just looks like it's going to fail one day and fail big. And if there'd been someone like you in the room, you would have gone, this is just like betting. This is just like gambling, what you guys are doing. There must have been someone somewhere that said that.
I think that there are a lot of people. I think people have recognized that many derivatives are a lot like gambling for a long time. The thing that derivatives are useful for is controlling risk in a certain way. Certain sorts of investments, for instance, that are inherently risky. And if you can come up with some sort of bet that you can make that you're going to win just in case the decision you have to make goes bad, then you've protected yourself a little bit. And that's the right way of thinking about, say, an options contract as a kind of insurance.
Have you ever been involved in the stock market? Have you ever been tempted to get into this, or you've gone, oh no, not me?
I think what I've learned from spending a few years writing a book about finance is that you've got to either...
And try and answer the question without using the term insider trading as well, James, if you can.
Yeah, that's right. So, look, the way I think about it is unless you can do this full-time, you're better off just investing in index funds, for instance.
Because as well as about talking about the Wall Street connection with various theories and models, you go into the history of chaos and unpredictability theory. I learned a lot about Mandelbrot and the Mandelbrot set, which I just thought used to be a very cool indie band, but in fact it's actually a mathematical theory. Please just tell us a bit more about Mandelbrot, and particularly how his experiences in Vichy France during the Second World War got him interested in chaos.
Mandelbrot was a French mathematician who came to the U.S. right after World War II and invented the word fractal. And Mandelbrot's big contribution to financial theory was the observation that there are systems or events that can vary way more dramatically than the kind of random processes that we're used to. So we're used to things like coin flips, and there are systems that are just, in some sense, more wildly random than that. He had, at one point, made a kind of analogy to his life as a Jew in hiding in France during World War II, that most of the time things were fine, but then some panzer division would roll through town and things would become very, very hairy, very, very fast. And that kind of dramatic variation was I think, pretty influential for him.
I love talking about fractals. I like talking about that in everyday life, where a small situation, to me, and please tell me if I'm wrong here because I'm asking the right guy, a small situation is indicative of a larger situation that's going on in the world. I'm just experiencing one small fractal of it. Is that a correct usage of the term or not?
I don't think that's the right way of using the term. It is the case, though, that fractals are patterns that have a certain kind of self-similarity. So just like you say, microcosms of a certain sort have this feature. In order for it to actually be a fractal, though, it has to repeat infinitely many times. So, no matter how finely you look, things have to look just the same as at larger distances or larger scales.
So you think it's possible to use the term fractal for any social modelling or not?
Well, this is just how modeling works. There's a sense in which when you have finite systems, you can't really talk about fractals. There's another sense, though, in which self-similarity can certainly occur, where dynamics between two people, for instance, in some sort of romantic relationship can be similar to dynamics between two groups, which can be similar to dynamics between two nations. One can certainly look at patterns like that.
I was looking at a graph of a pattern in your book, The Physics of Wall Street. It was a graph that predicts where you would be if you were drunk in a long corridor looking for your hotel room that you'd forgotten where it is, called a Cauchy pattern. What is that, the correct pronunciation of that?
So the one characterizing where you'd be if you're wandering around a hotel room is called a normal distribution. A Cauchy distribution is one that actually Mandelbrot spent a lot of time working on. The difference between a normal distribution and a Cauchy distribution is just this difference of wild variation. So Cauchy distributions make a kind of prediction about the likelihood of, for instance, you ending up in front of room 1,000 if you start in front of room 100. It's much more likely that you're going to end up that far away than if you're governed by a normal distribution.
There's different sorts of random, and the way you would be drunk looking for your hotel room in a long corridor is different from a random distribution of those numbers. Is that correct?
That's right. There are different senses in which probabilities can vary. We have an idea that randomness corresponds to a certain kind of unpredictability, and there's certainly a sense in which that's true. If I flip a coin, I can't predict if it's going to come up heads or tails. I can make predictions about what would happen if I were to flip the coin, say, 1 million times. Understanding what kind of random process you're dealing with can allow you to make those sorts of long-term statistical predictions about relative frequencies. You know, how often heads is going to show up relative to how often tails is going to show up.
Do you think sometimes the popular view of science makes us expect a little bit much? Where's my quantum computer laptop? I haven't got it yet.
Yeah, I do think that. In fact, I think that there's an awful lot of pressure on scientists to make the case prematurely for what sorts of ramifications or consequences their research could have. They're often pressed to make certain kinds of promises, lead to misplaced expectations. I mean, these are very, very difficult problems that concern the fundamental nature of the world. They aren't solved overnight.
That's not going to sound very good on a TV show, James. I don't know if they're going to let you on. They go, oh, here's Dr. Weatherall saying, oh, look, we probably can't do it, but wait. I mean, really, who's going to want to hear that?
It's worse. We're probably not going to be able to do it, but wait and give us a lot of money along the way.
Science is fun, but science is also, if done properly, science is hard.
It's very hard. I mean, there's not much low-hanging fruit left either. The problems that we're running up against now are really, I think, at the very edge of our technological ability and perhaps our intellectual ability.
In The Physics of Wall Street, we're looking at a situation where people have tried to find the golden bullet to be rich, and they've tried to misuse science.
The physicists that I talk about in the book, I don't think it's fair to say that they've misused science. But I think that there have been an awful lot of people who have taken these ideas. Look, these things were produced by these brilliant people, and that makes them reliable and a kind of insight into the world that no one else has. And you should invest in my fund and give me 20% of anything you make because I've got this equation that I'm going to invest based on.
Be wary of mathematicians bearing gifts.
Be wary of mathematicians inviting you to join hedge funds.
I'd like a message for people who might be getting into university or getting into some of the fields that you've been involved in. What do you think is the next great challenge that someone who's at university now can get involved in and possibly be part of the next breakthrough? I know you said earlier things are hard. What field should they be getting into and looking at in particular?
You know, I think that there are amazing discoveries waiting to be found in, for instance, in neuroscience, and the brain is something that we don't understand that we think we have a chance of understanding. I think that there are mathematics of social sciences is something that we're really only beginning to understand. I'm still hopeful that we're going to figure out, for instance, stuff like how to build a quantum computer and how to put together general relativity and quantum mechanics. And so I would still encourage students to go into that.
When I meet physicists, which I occasionally do at like the Amazing Meeting or something like that, I mention the name of Dr. Michio Kaiko, and they usually get a bit of an eye roll, the theoretical physicist from New York. Where do you stand on some of the things he says?
No comment.
I was going to bring up hologram theory, but probably shouldn't, I don't think.
I will say this. I think that it's very important I mean, as I said, I got into physics because of a Scientific American article I read that was in many ways over the top and promised more than could ever be delivered, and certainly ever was delivered on that theory. There's a way in which it's exhilarating to think not just about what we're going to be able to do over the next 5 or 10 years, but to speculate a bit about what might be possible in science in order to get people interested and to draw young people into the field. My own views on speculative physics are one thing. My view, though, on the importance of making science exciting is another.
Let's finish out. What do you find the most fascinating science website to go to? One that you would recommend where you can find interesting things that you always find interesting to read?
Honestly, my favorite, and it's a little bit idiosyncratic, and not everyone's going to love it, but it's John Baez's website, B-A-E-Z, Joan Baez's cousin, spelt the same way. He is the oldest science blog online. It's called This Week's Finds in Mathematical Physics, and he is a brilliant expositor of the wildest ways in which math appears in the natural world.
What's an example of something he might have looked at in the past where you go, whoa?
He's become very interested recently in environmentalism, and so he's been doing a lot of stuff on how mathematics can be used to understand the climate and understand climate change. But he's done all sorts of stuff on game theory, and so he'll give very simple examples of mathematics of different games, and mathematical patterns come up there, stuff like that.
That's something to keep us up late at night. Great. Thank you very much for your time, James.
Thanks, Maynard.
The Hansard is a podcast of the monthly lectures run by Canberra Skeptics Incorporated. Each month, Canberra Skeptics provides experts in their field, ranging from science and philosophy to politics and national security, with an opportunity to present their views. You can find us at www.canberraskeptics.org.au. The Hansard, Canberra Skeptics' Record of Reason.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. I have to now, sadly, start thinking about packing my bags. I've got a long flight tomorrow, an extended stay on an aeroplane while I fly back to Australia. It's hard to imagine as I look up here at the city walls and the trees. But all good things must come to an end, I guess. So, until next week, back in Australia, this is Richard Saunders signing off from beautiful Olomouc in the Czech Republic.
You've been listening to The Skeptic Zone. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for comments, contacts, and extra video reports.